Okay, listen up. This is First 5, where I look for games that respect your time and you can enjoy over a week or two. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm going to tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. Today, we're braving the Red Planet and surviving Mars. When you look at city builder games, there's always the question of whether each individual entry falls more on the creative side, essentially a digital canvas for your inner city planner, or is more of a simulation, focusing on balancing resources and finances while you slowly grow your burgeoning community like a carefully cared for bonsai tree. Surviving Mars is definitely the latter. The story of my few attempts at a Martian colony has always been a quest for subsistence. All that I have done on Mars has been in the pursuit of gaining new manufacturing capabilities, slowly filling the holes in my production to become my own self-sustaining ecosystem. How you go about that is actually one of Surviving Mars' most interesting twists. See, Mars isn't a one-way trip. Your rockets are reusable and regularly make stops between your small outpost and Earth's bounteous wealth. And you could ship literally anything you could ever want or need for your brand new space base, as long as you have the funds. And that's often the catch. You will have to rely on the mother planet for a long time, requiring regular shipments of fabricated products and even fully pre-made buildings too complex for you to immediately start manufacturing on the surface. But you've got a bottom line to keep. Earth's supply is unlimited, but your wealth is not, and the challenge will be to build up your capabilities so that your colony can sustain itself before your bank account dips into the red. And if you pull it off successfully, you'll even start being able to export rare resources for a profit. And there's a lot to balance even before you start shipping people to fill your outposts. You need to maintain your power, water, oxygen, and funding. And in addition, you also need to worry about weather hazards, your power grid regularly breaking down, and stockpiling enough resources to perform regular maintenance on all your buildings. When it all adds up, surviving Mars gives you a lot of plates to juggle, making every attempt an engaging uphill battle. It's incredibly unfortunate, however, that I spent more time conquering the game's UI than the planet itself. It feels like the tutorial got outsourced to Quill18, whose YouTube tutorial videos are advertised on the main menu, while the game itself is content to try and teach you entirely through hints and an encyclopedia I didn't even know existed until someone else pointed it out to me. Which, if you want to teach primarily through hints, alright, fine. But for every concept that was explained to me properly through Surviving Mars' hint system, there was another one that went completely unmentioned, most notably the game's UI, which is a series of menus you're left to putz around with and figure out yourself with very little help or direction from the game. In particular, these blue rings that pop up around each building you select are a contextual nightmare to learn. When you're highlighting extractors, the border represents the maximum distance they can harvest resources from. Around drone hubs and rockets, the ring represents the maximum operating distance for any attached drones. Around domes, I'm pretty sure the same blue border represents the maximum distance colonists can walk from their assigned dome. Around moisture vaporators, the border represents how far away you need to keep multiple vaporators from each other, because if they overlap, they start harvesting the same space and become less efficient. All of these different factors are important considerations when you're trying to design your colony, and every single one of them is presented exactly the same, and not a single one is explained properly. Most of Surviving Mars you have to figure out through trial and error, with an emphasis on the error. For the most part, the way I learned how and why things worked was by having the game pop up a red error message to tell me in what situations they didn't, and filling in the holes from there. By the end of 5 hours, I have a functional knowledge of how the game works, but there's still so much I don't know, and even the game's encyclopedia doesn't seem to want to tell me. Extractors generate dust that hastens the breakdown of other delicate equipment, but how far away do I have to set other buildings to avoid accumulating extra dust? Is there a way to stop my drones from fueling my rockets so that I can use the fuel to produce an important resource called polymers instead? And most critically, as my colony grows beyond the range of what one drone hub can handle, how do I set up supply chains between hubs? The result is I'm left to hunt across forums and YouTube channels for information on basic game concepts, and when I've only got 5 hours with a game, I sure as hell do not have time for that. So it's time I get around to a verdict. It's going to require a certain level of patience and stubbornness to pierce the veil of Surviving Mars' obfuscating presentation. It's nothing remotely on the level of truly inscrutable games like Dwarf Fortress, but you are going to be sinking time into learning how the heck this game functions. But, at the end of the day, I'm also still having fun, and that's the important part. Once you learn the rules, there's an enjoyable simulation to be had here, and the game offers multiple loadouts to start with so you can challenge yourself with progressively harder runs. And before anybody leaps to their feet to exclaim that city builders and simulation games are naturally more complicated, and of course it's going to be a little obtuse, and I'm just setting myself up for disappointment, I point you in the direction of City Skylines as an exhibit on how this doesn't have to be a problem. You can make UI that is intuitive to use. You can make a complex simulation that still succinctly and properly explains its rules and boundaries. It doesn't have to be this way, and it is not an excuse. Having to research edge cases or high-end strategies online is understandable, but Surviving Mars is a particularly egregious example of poor presentation and tutorializing nearly sinking an otherwise enjoyable and competent experience. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode of First 5. If you did, like, subscribe, or best of all, share this video around wherever you can. Surviving Mars by Haemimont Games and published by Paradox Interactive is available on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox One X. I'll see you all next week.